EAGLES, Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday morning edition of Birds 365. We are officially 1 week away from the Eagles reporting to training camp and just 8 days away from their first practice on the practice field. We got a great show planned for you today on Birds 365 as we wrap up the meat of the offseason, everybody. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Tuesday morning, my friend?
Doing well. A week away. Yeah. It's reminded me I got some stuff to do before next week.
Yeah, no doubt about that. But you better check off the honey-do list, John.
Yeah,
in fact,
exactly.
I can relate this year. My honey-do list is getting big quick, my friend.
Oh, with you have no idea, my friend. It's a long and arduous road. Never ending, too. There's the beauty.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Well,
all right, Johnny,
covenant, entering into a covenant is a beautiful thing.
There you go. From the wise words of one Jalen Hurts. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. All right, John, this morning we'll talk to John Stolness in hour number 1. Looking forward to talking to Johnny Stolness. In hour number 2, I got a good exercise that we will go through that should take up a good portion of hour number 2. As always, we will always talk to the great people of JAKIB Nation. If you guys have any super chats or comments, please leave them down below. Look forward to hearing from all of you guys. John, yesterday, a lot of those Nick Sirianni articles that you mentioned were coming out. A little bit of the use of AI has taken the city by storm a little bit, hearing that Nick Sirianni is using ChatGPT. All right, You mentioned that yesterday on the morning show. So that's interesting stuff. And we'll talk a little bit more about that this morning and also where we are on your countdown. We're getting pretty close, right? We did number 4 yesterday. And
number 3 should be out today. It might be out. Let's see.
Kerr might be dripping that thing later,
Yeah, never know when he's going to drop it, but coming out today, and maybe we'll spoil it here anyway.
You got to spoil it. That's the beauty of being a Birds 365 listener.
Yeah. Number 3 is going to be Lane Johnson.
Wow. So Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell remain as the final 2 Eagles. That is unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, it's and I'm trying to get the master list, which will tell you, because I'm trying to be unlike some other voting. I'm trying to be upfront with how it landed for each ballot.
Right, transparent.
Yeah. So Lane was number 3 overall, number 3 on Jeff Kerr's ballots, number 5 on mine, and number 2 on Ed Kratz's ballot. So obviously great player, Hall of Fame, future Hall of Fame player. But he missed essentially half of the season last year. And this, for me, is a snapshot entering the 2026 season. Now, the good part for Lane versus some of the other guys who either played injury or missed time for injury or both. So we're talking about players like Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens on offense, defense, Jalen Carter. The difference between him and them is he was playing at an extremely high level before he was injured. So there was no worried about, is he losing something? He was
talent-wise or ability-wise, yeah.
So he was still playing at a very high level. So, it's a little bit higher than I had him, but still I can't complain. He belongs in that conversation. If he played the whole season, he might have been number 1. So, still certainly one of the Eagles' best players, and landing at number 3 is certainly not egregious by any stretch.
No, Lane Johnson comes in at number 3. John, that brings me to the question. There's been the big 4 in Philly. You had Kelsey, you had Fletcher Cox, you had Brandon Graham, and you had Lane Johnson. Obviously, 3 of those men have hung up the cleats. Well, Brandon Graham, we'll say. But for the most part, has hung up the cleats. Lane Johnson is the final one remaining. As he ages, John, I know it's kind of a wait and see type of thing, a year by year, But what's the John McMullen thought right now on how many more years we could be watching Lane Johnson? Is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? Just if you had to go off the top. I mean, I understand, obviously, it depends on, does he play the full year? Does he not? What's the health look like? What's your gut instinct, though, right now on Lane Johnson?
Yeah, it changes, by the season because it changes with him. Like right now, I think he's very excited about the new offense. He's very excited about doing something new, just a natural, if you think about going to school for the first time, the first day of school, and you go to maybe high school from grammar school and yada, yada, yada. It's new and it's exciting. So I think there's some of that human nature. He feels good. So right now it's like, yeah, he'll play a couple more years, but again, if he suffers another injury, if it becomes a difficult season, if they win the Super Bowl again, he might say, you know what? Let's go out on top. So many things can enter in the equation. That's why year by year means year by year. And as he goes through it and the grind and what happens after the season is you're exhausted and players, especially at that age, are like, wow, do I really want to go through this again? So if you talk to them in the spring versus when you talk to them before they recharge their batteries, you get a completely different feel. So year by year is not a cliche with Lane Johnson. That's what it is. But right now he feels good and he's excited. And in his mind, I think he's got a couple more years left, but that could change after the season.
36 years old, Johnny turned this offseason. We also have Lane and I also have something in common. He got married as well this offseason, John.
A lot of marriages in the offseason.
Lane. It was
AJ got married. Devontae got married.
A lot of covenants going around.
Yeah. A lot of guys. So congratulations to everybody, including you. But yeah.
36 is getting up there. So next season he'd be 37, then 38. I mean, I could see him. How old is Trent Williams now? Trent Williams getting pretty old, right? I mean,
you can. That's a position you can play.
You can, right? But it's all about, like you just pointed out, it's all about want to. I mean, does he want to do it or does he not? Trent Williams is 38, just turned 38 actually a couple of days ago. So Trent's a little bit ahead of him. He's still playing. Maybe Lane goes into his 38, 39 season. We will find out. I'd love to have him here in Philadelphia. All right, Johnny Mac, that leaves two left, man. Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. Could anybody have predicted just a couple off seasons ago that there would be a new reigning 1 and 2 on the Philadelphia Eagles? Both of them drafted in the same year. Both of them around 1 and around 2 selection. Both becomes first-team All-Pros in their second season, and both had a major contribution to a Super Bowl championship. Boy, what a start to their career, Johnny Mac. I don't know who's going to come in at 1. What's everybody think in the chat? Who comes in at number 1? Is it Quinyon or is it Cooper? I think it could go either way. I'm thinking it will be Mitchell, but I don't know. I talked to John. He's always like, yeah, Cooper's all over. He can do more. It might be Coop. Who knows who will be number 1? But, John, pretty remarkable where those two guys have already ascended to on this team.
Yeah, I mean, you described it. I mean, first-team All-Pros by year 2. And year 1, they were big impacts on the Super Bowl winning team. And Cooper, had the big pick 6. It's been amazing. That draft has, to say the least, has worked out for the Philadelphia Eagles into, this is not a team that lacks stars. If you look at 3, Lane Johnson, Saquon Barkley was 4, Jalen Carter was 5, Zach Bone was 6, Devontae Smith was 7, Jordan Mailata was 8, Jalen Hurts is 9, Jordan Davis was 10. So that's your top 10. And then you bleed some still really good players, Landon Dickerson, Jonathan Grenard, Dallas Goedert. I think you get to 13 before there's a little bit of there's a drop-off. So it's a really gifted team. And And I don't think anybody's going to argue that these two belong at the top. I mean, they're, they only had 2 first-team All-Pros last year.
I know. It's unbelievable, man. These two guys are – and they've totally transformed the secondary of the defense. Now, obviously, Vic has been a big part of that as well. When you pair up great players with a great coach, that's when you get the best recipe, John. But amazing, man, where these two guys are going. I think both of them, John, will be here for a long time in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope. Yeah, we just talked about offensive tackle. Obviously, it's a defensive back. You're not going to play to 36 or 37 at a high level. The guys who reach that level tend to be,
He was young when he got drafted, though, Quignon, wasn't he? And Coop.
Yeah.
He's 25.
Quignon.
He just turned 25. And Cooper's what? Cooper, DeJean, age. He's 23. Cooper's only 23.
Yeah, they still got plenty of time. I'm just saying, it's not a position where you play 15 years at a really high level. The guys who do this, Stephon Gilmore's, they tend to be savvy and they're not nearly as good as they were, but they're able to contribute. You could see that happening. But that's, there's certain positions, offensive line being one of them, quarterback being another, where you can play for a very, very long time. Cornerback, and in the case of Cooper, defensive back. That's for the youngins. As you see them, you got to have a lot of juice to play those positions.
No doubt about it. They're dominating right now. Well done by those two guys. We'll see who comes in at number 1. You'll know tomorrow because we'll get number 2 tomorrow, and that will obviously tell you who number 1 is. John, what'd you make of the AI-powered, ChatGPT-driven Philadelphia Eagles? I saw that one yesterday. A lot of people had some fun with that. Look, I know everybody will joke about it. I use AI for many different things because I'm a one-man band. I run this business, me and my dad, but obviously I do most of the production and the behind-the-scenes work, and it's a massive help to me. You can get very creative. You can get very smart with it. You can tailor it on training it on exactly what you want it to learn and pull context from and things of this nature. So I, for one, think it's a positive thing that the Eagles would be implementing. And I'm of the belief, by the way, that every single football team, every single big business will be using this technology. If not now, then within the next 6 to 12 months, maybe 18 months at most. So I think it's a good thing. But a lot of people have a little bit of fun with it. John, what'd you make of it, my friend?
Well, I hope, and I can't judge, but I hope people read the stuff on it. I hope they read the context. I never know if people read the context. My hunch is when he did it, people are going to run with it in weird ways. I hope that's not the case. I mean, basically, he was using it to look for different ways to keep the messaging fresh. So I'm sure some people were out there saying, "Oh, he's drawing up plays on AI," which, by the way, you can do and probably be better than your plays. By the way, I'm not picking on you. I mean, I meant in general.
Yeah.
But they do not do that, obviously. So basically, he was given an example of, and by the way, he didn't even remember the ChatGPT. He couldn't remember the GPT part of it. So, and he brought up Anthony Robles, who was a Division I wrestling champion, was born without a leg, and still persevered. To things like that, to keep the messaging fresh, because that's the most difficult thing to do as a head coach, because people stop listening. The guys that were there, I mean, they hear it's human nature. You hear the same thing over and over and over. That's why I love that quote he gave the one time, which is, the burden of leadership is repetition. You got to hammer home. You got to hammer it home again and again and again, and people get tired. people get tired of hearing tough detail together. People get tired of hearing, the core philosophies and all that kind of stuff. So how do you make that fresh for the Lane Johnsons of the world, for the guys who've been through it a million times? You try to come up with these unique approaches, which has been, I would say a strength going all the way back to the Flower story that went over like not well, let's put it kindly, at the time. And we talked to the players and they said it went over like gangbusters. It was completely different framing from what the outside world thought. So that's all it was about. I don't know. I haven't looked around but I remember when he said it, I remember fearing, oh, people are going to run with this. There are certain things I know that people are going to run with. And this is one of them. And I hope they're doing it responsibly, the fans. But, if you got to read the context. And it was about messaging.
Yeah, it's a tool too. I mean, come on. It's a tool. It's going to be used in everywhere. So you might as well get used to it. All right, Johnny Mac, good stuff there, man. Lane Johnson comes in at number 3 on your guys' top 25 list. Cooper and Quinion remain. Bunch of Nick Sirianni stories have come out, and we are 8 days away from the Eagles' first practice and just 1 week away from the Eagles reporting for training camp. We got the great John Stolnis in the green room set to join us right here on Birds 365. You can follow him at John Stolnis as he joins us here. Read him on Bleeding Green Nation. John, good to talk to you, my friend. You got a nice tan. You're looking handsome this morning. Welcome in.
Wow. You got a handsome. You got a handsome. Nice.
It's a first time for everything, fellas. How you guys doing?
Good, buddy. Good to see you. Wow, I'm thrilled for you to get that kind of introduction. So
it's been a while. It's been a while. Listen, I mean, even the kids, I don't get it from them, or my wife. I do.
Does he not have a nice tan right now, or what? The guy looks like he's been on the beach. It looks nice.
Right, yeah.
Now this is yard. This is
I'm
yard
not
work.
Disputing it. I'm thrilled for John. I'm thrilled for him.
This is just dad yard work tan. That's all this is right here.
Nice. All right. Now I got to recover. That's how jarring it was. I think you've probably seen some of the pieces coming out with Nick Sirianni over the past couple of days. One of them we just mentioned with the ChatGPT stuff, which I had concerns when he said it. And I was because and by the way, Zander's right. I mean, AI's either get on board or don't, but it's going to be part of everybody when it comes to business, because if you use it correctly, it can help with busy work and things like that can increase your efficiency. So it's going to be here. But in the case of Nick Sirianni, he used it for messaging as you become a veteran coach. One of the most difficult things is you say the same thing over and over again. Human nature, John, is people turn the tune out. So you have to come up with creative ways. Did you see the Chat GPT, and what was your first reaction to it?
I think the idea of using artificial intelligence to help a head coach prepare something to say to the team, it sounds weird, right? I mean, it does. And we know Nick Sirianni is kind of an interesting cat to begin with. He has in the past been criticized from the stuff that he has used to motivate the team. And we all remember the flowers blooming speech that was kind of and he probably didn't get that from ChatGPT. I don't think it was really up and running at that point, or if it wasn't where it is right now. But I think we have to look at the way we look at ChatGPT in particular and those kinds of artificial intelligence. That's the new Google. I mean, really, anytime if you want information, whereas before maybe you would have gone to Google or a search engine or something, you're kind of going to ChatGPT now. So it's not as weird anymore to use artificial intelligence for ideas.
And by the way, Google uses AI. You have an AI mode. They're using it. So
exactly. And I've used it like for if I'm going on a job interview, you can use it to kind of actually do a practice interview. They'll actually give you good prompts and stuff. I think the issue comes in is where you want a head coach to be authentic. And I think where it strikes maybe some people as weird is that if you're getting this story handed to you by a chatbot, that how authentic are you? How authentic is the story? But I think that's where the criticism comes in. I don't share it. I mean, I think it probably, given Nick Sirianni's status with the fan base and where things stand with him and his uncertain future here in Philadelphia, and the questions about what it is that he does as the CEO head coach, if he's not running the offense, if he's not running the defense, well, what is he doing? The question is, well, what is he, just spending all his time on ChatGPT looking up, speeches to deliver? I think that's where the fan's mind goes, right? Like this is how we're filling out the hours. But I don't think that's fair necessarily to him. I don't think that's necessarily an accurate portrayal of how he's spending his time. We all look to different things to get inspiration. I mean, I know maybe would it have been any different if he'd said, yeah, I got an idea for this speech from reading something from Mark Twain, like, why is that different? Why is that different? Why is that better? Why is that worse? So to me, I want to, when I criticize Nick Sirianni, I want there to be some weight behind it. This would not be something that I would criticize Nick Sirianni for. This is just kind of one of those weird little things that I think probably would have been better left unsaid.
Yeah, I think
that I would disagree, only because I love when he opens up. I think that gives you a window into the guy. The last thing, because when he first got here, I thought he was very open and he would be, and now he's far more guarded. Maybe it's just natural being in the position he's in. And I don't want him to close up even more. I want him to open up. And so I think it's a good thing. But I also recognize the pitfalls in that. And one of them is that people are going to take the baton and run off in the different directions and maybe frame it in negative ways. So it is a difficult sort of tightrope to traverse. But the interesting part to your point about the weighty criticism, in the, as a CEO coach, what does he do? I spent a lot of the last week or so talking to people around the league. I think it would surprise people how involved he was last year when things started to go bad offensively. Now, that's probably going to be framed as bad as well because it didn't solve much. Although the running game changes, which were significant and done in season last year, did improve things somewhat when they moved under center. Saquon got a little bit better. So I think, it's fair to criticize. I think people don't realize, and this will bleed into this season, John, for all the talk about Sean Mannion autonomy, I don't know if he's getting the autonomy people want. And I that might be a good thing because we've normalized a guy 3 years off his playing career with 1 year as a positional coach, and he's calling plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's a big matzo ball, as Jerry Seinfeld would say.
It's a big step up. I think, there was concern when Andy Reid first got here. Was he ready for the job? And obviously he turned into one of the greatest head coaches in NFL history. But I don't think it's fair to kind of say, well, we'll follow the Andy Reid path and we're on a glide path to success, right? I mean, it might happen that way. And Andy Reid had more time as an assistant coach than Sean Mannion has coming into this job. We also see this is a different NFL. These young guys are getting chances far sooner than they would have 20, 30 years ago. So it's just kind of the way the NFL is working nowadays. I think with Nick Sirianni, what we saw last year, and I think Reuben Frank wrote this in a really good NBC Sports article last week or the beginning of this week. I forget exactly when it was. But looking at how the Eagles scored their points last year, they were very good early in games last year. There were a number of games where the Eagles scored a lot of their points early, where you could see a lot of the work that they did in the week leading up to the games actually proved fruitful. And maybe a lot of that is because of the involvement, as you just said, of Nick Sirianni kind of getting more of his hands on the offensive game plan. The issue was when defenses would adjust, the Eagles went back into their shell, and starting midway through the second quarter through the end of just about every game last year. And that to me is the offensive coordinator not able to adjust, because Nick Sirianni can't be then, if he's got an offensive coordinator that he's trusting to do those different kinds of things, it's more difficult for him to be thinking on the fly of different things to do. Now, maybe you can say that's his job. He should be able to do that. He should be able to help Kevin Patullo or whoever the offensive coordinator is make in-game changes. I think that's fair, and I think that's a fair criticism. But to your point, if Nick Sirianni was getting more involved in game planning and preparing offenses during the course of the season last year, I think we saw that manifested itself in how well they did, how they scored most of their points early in football games a season ago.
John, what do you think of Nick this year? I mean, is he on the hot seat? Like, if I read to you right now his resume in 5 seasons, I think it's been as a head coach, it's a 59 and 20 something win per, record. He's got 2 NFC titles. He's got a Super Bowl championship. Obviously, he's been to the playoffs 5 straight years. And then I followed it up and said, that guy's on the hot seat, and you just dropped in from Mars. You'd say, what the hell are you talking about? Do you think he's really on the hot seat? Where are you on Nick Sirianni and the pressure he has coming into this season after obviously not meeting expectations a year ago?
Yeah, I think he is on the hot seat, and I think I wrote an article for Bleeding Green Nation. My last one that came out over the weekend was who's in the hot seat more? Is it Jalen Hurts? Is it Nick Sirianni? Or is it Sean Mannion? Like, if this offense doesn't do well, who's going to get the blame first? Who's going to get the majority of the blame? Who could be on their way out first? And I really had a hard time. I don't think it'll be Mannion. Simply because it seems to me, based from the outside, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the Mannion selection was more Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie's decision than Nick Sirianni's decision. Like, this isn't a Nick Sirianni guy like Kevin Patullo was a Nick Sirianni guy. So my guess is it would fall at the feet of either Jalen Hurts or Nick Sirianni. And yeah, I think Nick Sirianni absolutely is on the hot seat. Now, do they go 8-9 and he's fired? I could see that scenario, especially if the team looks poorly coached offensively. If you look at this team and you say the offense again is once again the reason why this team isn't succeeding, I absolutely think Nick Sirianni could go. He almost got fired in the 2024 season when they won the Super Bowl, or and leading, coming out of the 23 season. It's just his job security has never been firm. And you could say maybe that's crazy, maybe that's insane. There's also obviously an argument that you could, I think, make a very good argument that Sirianni has been carried by other players, by the roster that Howie Roseman has put together. As he's gone along, Nick Sirianni has had more responsibility either taken away from him or he voluntarily has given it up as his head coach progression has moved along. So this is not a guy who has taken on more and has succeeded as he's taken on more. He's taken on less. And I think that's where you kind of run out of, if Nick Sirianni, if this team doesn't do well, you have to ask yourself, how is he helping us? Where is the net added benefit to Nick Sirianni as the head coach? And so, yeah, I think he's been on the hot seat for the last few years, and I see no reason why that should change here in 2026.
Yeah, I think it's more in I wrote about the expectations earlier this week, which the organization has embraced, but they do exist. I mean, I think when you point out after 2023 and even early in 2024, look, they have high expectations. So if you're not going to reach them, we know Jeffrey Lurie is going to react to that. So ultimately, I think if you think about it in a larger framework, everybody's renting space in the NFL. So now in your comp, like who's more, I think it's Nick, simply because it's tougher to replace a quarterback than a coach versus Jalen Hurts. But I will say this. If Sean Mannion is an abject disaster, which I don't think he's going to be, I think he's a very bright guy. I think, he'll have growing pains, but I think he'll be fine ultimately. But if he is, just play that hypothetical, hat tip to Jody Mack out there. You feel very comfortable blaming that on Nick Sirianni. He wasn't foisted on Nick Sirianni. So I think people should be very comfortable. If they want to criticize Nick because Sean is not good, which I don't think is going to happen, feel very comfortable. He hired. So I And he's taken that accountability, and he should have it. So I don't think people should be making excuses for him in that aspect of it. And I think he would agree with it. But overall, that's going to be the story of the year, right? How does Sean Mannion take over this offense? Why have they shifted the offense? Why the shift in the running game that was so successful for years and years and years? And these are all Nick Sirianni things. So I think they're all in play for criticism. Jeff Stoutland, he's not here because they wanted to change the running scheme. And I think people forget they were a top 5 running team with Miles Sanders and DeAndre Swift before Saquon Barkley, where they became historic. So I ask you, John, what the hell happened that all of a sudden the league woke up one day and said, this scheme, you can't use this scheme that has worked brilliantly for 5 years?
Yeah.
That's the part that I don't get.
Well, I think it's fair to note that the scheme that worked brilliantly during that stretch in terms of running the football was built on the backs of an offensive line that was the best in the NFL, and they weren't last year. And so when you had the injuries or the difficulties that Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson had a season ago, and then you lose Lane Johnson for the last half of the season, including the playoff game, suddenly asking your offensive linemen to just straight up win one-on-one battles didn't work anymore. And there was no pivot. There was no way to give those guys any help. It was too late in the season to come up with an alternative scheme. You were riding with basically what you came into the season with. And so that was a large part of the issue with the running game. Because you're right, this offense has never been a great passing offense. It's never been that.
Right.
It's always relied on the running game. And it's had to rely on Jalen Hurts running the football too. Whenever we talk about the running game, we have to include Jalen Hurts in it. And I really feel like that's left out of the equation a lot, because he has always been such a vital part of the running game. When Miles Sanders and DeAndre Swift were here, Jalen Hurts running the football was a major part of that. When Saquon Barkley, even in his 2,000-yard rushing season, the threat of Jalen Hurts running the football was a big part of that. And that was gone last year. And it's still a big mystery why that never occurred. Even as the season hung on the brink, we never saw Jalen Hurts run. So part of what we're talking about in terms of the offensive scheme and the running game has to do with the offensive line getting hurt, has to do with Jalen Hurts getting hurt. But it also, the head coach had no answers. There was no pivot. There was no passing game to turn to. And I think if we're looking at things you can ding Nick Sirianni for, when things start to fall apart, when it started to fall apart in 2023 and it started to fall apart in 2025, the locker room also seemed like a mess. You had AJ Brown last year, but in 2023, you had a lot of different things going on. You had the rally duck last year. Remember the rally duck, the big inflatable duck they brought into the
positivity bunny. It was
That's what it was. Thank you.
Bunny.
I'm sorry. I didn't remember exactly which giant inflatable animal they brought into the clubhouse last year to fix the vibes. But the fact that, it was just sometimes the organization, especially when things aren't going well, it kind of resembles a clown show a little bit. And so that factors into the Nick Sirianni conversation as well.
Yeah. That was AJ Dillon.
I know. But Nick Sirianni's got to say, get that thing out of my clubhouse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, they did. It was
Get
only
outta
there
here.
for a couple of days, but they saw it didn't go over that well.
Yeah.
So it was quickly removed. But I mean, all these things I think are representative. And I'm glad you brought up the +1 of Jalen Hurts. So, and I'm with you. Nobody knows exactly. Is it Jalen? Is it the organization? It's probably a combination of both, as it always is. But that's my biggest concern. If you're going to play under center a lot, you're essentially legislating that +1 out of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't run an RPO from under center. Or a zone read from under center. So are we saying that Jalen Hurts' legs are no longer a part of this running game? And if we are, shouldn't the changes be more drastic? Because you're playing a completely different style. I think Greg Cosell said this great he was on Ross Tucker's podcast, where he said, look, he's never done this before.
Yeah.
Dating back to college. Forget about the pros. He never did it at Alabama. He never did it at Oklahoma. And all of a sudden in year 7, you're telling him, hey, by the way, play a whole different style of football. And let's cut you off. And you can't use your +1 impact. The whole thing is bizarre to me, John. I need to be talking off the leg. It's just, my biggest compliment I give the Philadelphia Eagles all the time is usually their decisions make sense. They might not always work because you might evaluate a player wrong, but you see the thinking behind the decision. I don't see the thinking behind this decision. It doesn't make any sense to me.
You know, we went through this with Donovan McNabb, sort of midway through his career, where Donovan didn't want to run. He just didn't. He wanted to be a pocket passer. He didn't eliminate the +1, and he didn't have the same kind of dynamism as a runner as Jalen Hurts has, although Donovan was very, very good at the beginning of his career. Jalen Hurts doesn't seem like a guy who wants to run anymore. He didn't run last year, even in the RPO heavy shotgun offense. He didn't run. He didn't. He just didn't. He didn't add anything. And maybe that was because of the banged up offensive line, but I don't think there was a willingness by Jalen Hurts to run a season ago. I don't think he wants to do it. So even if you'd maintained a similar offense here in 2026, where you have Hurts in the shotgun, where you have the RPOs, I don't think he wants to run with the football. And I think it's a terrible decision to eliminate him as a runner, because I don't know how good a quarterback he is if he's simply going to be throwing the football. Now, it really is going to depend on what the passing game looks like, how they scheme players open. If it gets the football out of his hand more quickly, if it's causing confusion, then I can see this working. Without him running the football, I can. But I think that it hits the nail on the head. We have never seen him do this before. But I think this is the direction that we were going. I think they telegraphed this a year ago. He doesn't want to run. And I think that's taking away something that makes him really special. If he has come to that decision as he's getting into maybe the second half of his career, he doesn't want to be a running quarterback. He doesn't want to risk concussions and put his body at risk like that. Okay, that's a decision, but it might also affect how effective he is as a quarterback. And it's a grand experiment they're engaging here in 2026. I don't know if it's going to work. It may blow up in their faces, or it might be exactly what Jalen Hurts needs here to springboard the second half of his contract and the second half of his career.
Yeah, and he's got that looming contract that's coming up, John. That's the most interesting part to me, because I'll try and explain this the best I can.
Yep.
You know, there's individual performance, and then there's obviously team performance and success. There's 2 Super Bowl years with Jalen Hurts, 22 and 24. 22, Jalen was the reason, you could argue. I don't think anybody got out of the 22 season and said, you know, hey, Jalen Hurts was maybe along for the ride, like they could have in 24 when the running game was incredible, when the defense was incredible. You know, can he afford to do that style of year again this year, where he's a great game manager, versus if he does what he does in 22 and he's the reason, you know, that's going to be a lot easier to give him that contract. When you're talking about $65 million, I think he needs to do more than be a game manager this year, which might be tough for him to do. How do you see it in terms of him getting to that next contract? Because, you know, 65 million large is going to be a decision for Howie Roseman.
So if Jalen Hurts can give you the kind of a season that, let's say, Brock Purdy gives you, where Purdy's a pretty mobile guy. He'll get you a couple of first downs with his legs, but he is more of a kind of a game manager, but with high upside. Like Brock Purdy, I think we would all agree, is a very good quarterback in the NFL. If Jalen Hurts can give you the kind of offensive production that Brock Purdy gives you, and I would have never said 2-3 years ago Brock Purdy's a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. I never believed that he was. But if you take away Jalen's running ability, if you take him away as a straight up runner, now you're putting these guys on kind of an equal footing. And I think you'd have to say, as a passer, Brock Purdy's a better passer than Jalen Hurts, at least at this point. We haven't seen Jalen Hurts take that next step as a passer in an offensive system where you're under center and you're asked to do all these different kinds of things. So if Jalen Hurts becomes that, I'm very happy to give Jalen Hurts a contract extension, because he also does bring you these other intangibles. He plays well in big games. And I like Jalen Hurts. I want him to be the long-term solution at quarterback. But as you guys have talked about on this show, as has been written about, the Eagles have an out in the Jalen Hurts contract so that the guaranteed money drops significantly after the 26th season. And so this is going to be a huge season for Jalen Hurts to see whether or not he can be that type of a quarterback, because it is difficult to see how are they going to generate quarterback runs in a system like this. Maybe there's a way. Maybe Sean Mannion is a creative genius and he's going to find a way to get Jalen Hurts on the move, design quarterback runs from under center. Or maybe there will be enough shotgun mixed into the under center stuff that you could do these different kinds of things where you're not telegraphing it. Oh, he's in the shotgun, he's going to run. Maybe there is something like that. I don't know. But it's a pivotal year for Jalen Hurts here in an Eagles uniform, because they can free up a lot of cash for themselves to sign a lot of the young defensive stars that are going to be coming up for contract extensions if they say goodbye to Jalen Hurts, if this season doesn't play out well. I don't know what they do to replace him. That's the big question, because they don't have anything to go to at the moment in like 27 if they decide to move on. But they've done it before with high-priced quarterbacks. They've moved on before from guys without necessarily a guaranteed successor lying in the weeds. So,
I like your branding of grand experiments, and my question to you is, as you just explained nicely with Jalen Hurts, is this the time for a grand experiment? Isn't this roster still too good to be experimenting, or as opposed to, all right, let's just take advantage of Jalen Hurts' shelf life for as long as we can with the style that he plays?
Mm-hmm.
That seems to me like, all right, sports, we've all been around sports long enough to understand it's cyclical. Eventually the talent level dips and you have to take a step back to maybe take two forward. I don't think the Eagles roster is at that point where they're saying, all right, let's take a step back. Let's do.
Mm-mm.
Is this the moment for the grand experiment, or should they have said, let's hold off on that?
Well, I'll say that I don't think they had a choice. They tried to hire a head coach with more experience that maybe wouldn't necessarily have tried to reinvent the Eagles offensive wheel, but they couldn't land them. Sean Mannion was not their first choice. They didn't go into this offseason thinking, oh, if we can just get our hands on Sean Mannion, he can bring a whole new style of offense to Philadelphia and we're off and running. He was like choice number 4, choice number 5, choice number 6, whatever it was. And a lot of guys turned the Eagles down. So they when they realized they couldn't get the type of veteran head coach that they wanted, they had to pivot. And this, to me, was the best option they could have done with the pivot, was to say, okay, we have to pivot because we really don't have a choice. So let's invest in and try and do the different things that successful offenses in the NFL are doing now. Nobody's doing things the way the Eagles were doing them offensively. And again, that was because they have so much talent at these different positions. They could afford to kind of play more of an individualistic offense. But they knew A.J. Brown was going to be gone. So they weren't going to have that big play, true number 1 wide receiver on the outside anymore. And they don't know about the quality of their offensive linemen right now. Lane Johnson was saying in this offseason, he's looking forward to playing in this offense because he's going to get a little help on the outside.
Yeah.
So, maybe this helps extend the offensive linemen a little bit, helps extend their shelf life a little bit, helps take some of the pressure off of those guys, because maybe they just couldn't do it anymore the way Jeff Stoutland wanted them to do it and the way the Eagles offense was running prior to what it looks like it's going to run like in 2026. I just don't know that they had a choice. And so if you take that into the realm of where we are, into reality, that they had no alternative but to kind of go in this direction, like, okay, let's figure this out now. Can Jalen Hurts be the quarterback that leads us forward past the 2026 season, or do we need to start thinking of an off ramp? Do we need to figure out an exit plan? And I agree with you. It's not ideal. I think it would have been, obviously the ideal situation would have been if Kevin Patullo worked out, if he had shown an ability to be able to run an offense to the point where they didn't need to fire him this offseason. that's just not the reality of what happened last year and into this offseason. And given the fact they really struggled to find the kind of head coach that they wanted, a guy with a lot of play calling experience who maybe could keep some of the same things in place, they went with the best alternative they could, and that's where we are.
A lot of offense talk here, John Stillness. That's where all the questions are on the offseason here. I want to go over to the defense just for a sec. How good do you think they can be this year, John? I mean, do you think they can be a top 3 unit, a top 5 unit, top 10? What's your expectation for the Eagles defense coming into this season?
Definitely a top 10 unit, and I absolutely think they can be a top 5 unit. I think the Jonathan Greenard edition is a huge one for this team. But a lot of this is going to hinge on Jalen Carter, what kind of season they get from him in the middle. Can Jordan Davis repeat the kind of season that he had a season ago, and can those two guys continue to dominate in the middle of the defensive line? It's a big season for Jalen Carter. He wants the contract extension. I think the Eagles want to give it to him. I think they want to make him a cornerstone player, but they need to see more from Jalen Carter. But I think we're going to see a better season from him, a more consistent season from Jalen Carter. But you look at the cornerback room, it's fantastic. I feel so good about those 3 corners, and even at safety, which I know is kind of the weak link of the team. Marcus Epps played well for the Eagles last year. He's not flashy, but can he give you what they've had in the past without the drop off? I know Reed Blankenship was very good, but he did not play great last year. I mean, so I think Marcus Epps gives you some stability there. I like Makuba. He played well and was improving before he got hurt as the season went along. So, there's upside there at safety. And if that's your weak link, you're in good shape. So I think this could be a defense that looks a lot like the one that kind of ran the table at the end of the 24 season. I'd like to see more from Nolan Smith, but I mean, Jalix Hunt looks like he's ready to take another step forward. Mora Ojimo looks like he's ready to take another step forward. And, I'm excited to see a full season of Jahad Campbell. Need him to stay healthy. The loss of Nakobe Dean, it might be felt in certain areas, but that's the reason that you drafted Jahad Campbell. And the Eagles have had success working in their draft picks to replace veterans who were here before. And Vic Fangio, there's nobody better in the NFL running defenses. And if there's anybody who can get these guys, these young players to take the next step forward in their development and take on the mantle from Nakobe Dean, Jahad Campbell doing that. He's got so much talent. It's a very exciting defense. And as we saw last year, the Eagles can win a lot of regular season games with a top shelf defense. But at some point, the offense does need to do its share as well. But top 5 defense is absolutely on the table. Top 3 defenses is absolutely on the table. This is a really good unit that is loaded with players.
At John Stolness, make sure you follow John on the X platform. Read him at Bleeding Green Nation. He mentioned his latest. Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, Sean Mannion. Who's under the most pressure? Make sure you go check that out. I guess it ended. I'm going to put you in the Howie Roseman cap. And you mentioned Jalen Carter there, and I'm with you. He's got to turn back into that game wrecker on a consistent basis. Mm-hmm. How do you handle the extension, the contract? Sort of a hold in at mandatory minicamp. He was there, but didn't practice, didn't do team drills. Do you just pay him the money and say, we're going to save it? Or do you need to see more and force it down the Jordan Davis route? That worked out. They challenged Jordan Davis. He got his big deal. How do you handle that?
I do. I tell Jalen Carter we need to see more. We need to see more consistency on a game-to-game basis. If 8 games into the season, Jalen Carter is just tearing it up, sign the guy. I mean, there's no rule that says you can't sign him midseason. I know Howie Roseman doesn't like to do that. Howie's got
his rule. Yeah.
I know. But and if you tell Jalen Carter, hey, listen, we're going to do this for you at the end of the season, but you say Jalen Carter then hurts himself. Well, then Howie Roseman, if he hasn't signed a guy, then he can say, well, you weren't hurt before, you're hurt now. So there's a risk there if you're Jalen Carter. But Jalen Carter's not going to hold out. If he holds out at training camp, I don't care. I don't care how much he plays in training camp. I want him to be on the field. I want him to be in game shape, but he's only going to hurt himself if he's not in training camp, if he's not playing. If he's not getting himself ready for the season, because if he starts the season slow, if he has a down season again in 2026, he's not going to get the extension from the Eagles. So Howie Roseman is holding the cards here. And if Jalen Carter is not playing well, or he's not on the field, you could see the Eagles trading him at the trade deadline this coming year. So I think Howie Roseman has more options, and he has a lot of guys that he probably wants to pay. I mean, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean they're going to need contract extensions at some point coming up. There's not the money is not an endless supply. So he has the ability to say to Jalen Carter and into his camp, we need to see a little bit more from Jalen. If he plays well here at the start of the season, he's going to get his contract extension. And I think you can make special exceptions for a player like Jalen Carter. I think everybody in the locker room, if Carter was to get a contract extension agreed to in the middle of the season, I don't think anybody's blinking twice. They want Jalen Carter to be a long-term member of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, that's how Howie describes it. He doesn't want agents calling him. What about my guy? What about my? But he also said he said if we're a Super Bowl contender, which he's not going to extend people in season.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think most people. I think your point is a prudent one. Is if it's the quarterback, if it's Jalen Hurts, if it's somebody like Jalen Carter, you're not saying, "Oh, what about me?" You kind of recognize it. So I agree. I agree. That would be a good way to handle it. But listening to Howie, he doesn't want to do stuff in season. We'll see if he breaks from that point. I think it's not a good policy. One of the few things I would criticize Howie for. Mm-hmm. I think your approach would be a better one, but he believes it at least. But to wake up one day and change your mind, that's possible as a human being. But John, I'd also let you get in anything on the Phillies if you want. Boy, I got to tell you. I got to tell you real quick, the All-Star game, I thought was a celebration of modern baseball. And by that, I mean, everybody strikes out and the pitchers all throw 170 and there's no ball in play. And I'm like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? But I muddied the waters, but please.
No, I think it's a good point, and it's a conversation Major League Baseball is having, and especially at something like the All-Star game, where if the great pitchers will almost always beat the great hitters. The thing is, in regular season baseball, you only have one or two of those guys in every starting rotation. And then the rest of the rotation is filled out with guys that, generally speaking, most hitters can hit on a semi-regular basis. But overall, the offensive numbers across Major League Baseball are down. And the only way to really fix it is to expand, to add a couple more teams, to thin out the pitching mix. You're still going to have those guys, but not as many teams are going to have those guys. And you're going to have more guys pitching in Major League Baseball who are not as dynamic as some of the very best pitchers in baseball. And there has been talk in Major League Baseball about expansion for the last 5 to 7 years. They want to add 2 more teams. And so we see offensive explosions always occur in expansion years. It happened in 1993. It happened, I'm not remembering exactly what years the Diamondbacks came into existence and some of the Tampa Bay Rays when they came into existence. But whenever you have these expansion years, the offense always improves for a couple of years. And I think we actually have reached a point now where it would make sense for Major League Baseball to expand to another 2 teams, because we are seeing so many pitchers who are throwing at ridiculous speeds. I will say too, that I think some of those bills come due. You may have some of these guys who are able to do this for a short amount of time, and then they kind of flame out. I don't know how long Milwaukee's JAKIB Nation is going to be able to be throwing 102, 103 miles an hour, 30 starts a season. No human being's arm has really ever been able to sustain that. And so it's what you're really seeing it is in bullpens. There's so many bullpens with guys who are throwing like that.
Here's I think you might have to go more drastic, John. And by that, I mean, look, I always say I don't blame the teams. Their goal is to try to win. And if it tells you this is the way to win, I have no problem with that. But Major League Baseball, their job is to make the game entertaining for the fans.
Mhm.
And if you end up, whether it's lower in the mound because Bob Gibson's too dominant, if you go all the way back to that, or in this case, you got a bunch of relievers who come in and throw 100 and it's just bang, bang, bang. Limit the amount of pitchers you can use in any one game.
Mm.
It's drastic. But if you say, and debate the number, you only got 5, you can only have 5 pitchers. That's it.
Yeah.
Maybe change back in the playoffs. But I think it would help. I think it would help. You'd have to stretch out the starters. I think it would solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. If you wanted to mandate that every day's active roster, you could only have 6 pitchers on it. You would certainly be able to get more. You get more bats on your major league roster, but you can only use 6 or 7 pitchers or whatever the number is that they decide to use. You run into issues with potential injuries, and I think that's where the players' union would bristle at it. Is
no, sure, yeah,
it's you have to be able to have a full complement of relievers and stuff. But I think there are conversations being had. I don't know exactly what the answers are, because the human body we've seen it throughout sports, right? In baseball, basketball, football. If you put basketball players from the 1970s up against the guys from the 2020s, the guys from the 2020s are going to wipe the floor with most of those guys pretty much every time. They're just faster. They're more explosive. They're more dynamic. It's the same thing in football. It's the same thing in baseball. The human body evolves. And I think at some point too, hitters just have to get used to seeing 102, 103 miles an hour and be able to start hitting it. I think you will see that as time goes on. That's usually how this works. Hitters, pitchers, they're always adjusting, acclimating, getting better, getting worse at different things. And maybe you will see things change as time goes along. There's only so much you can do to stop human progress, John.
Well, I agree. And by the way, I agree that would be the safety argument. But as you pointed out, how safe is it to have somebody, hey, go out there and throw 102 because you're only going to be out there for this amount of pitches.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's not safe.
No. No.
So it goes back and forth, but I agree with you. But something has to work, and that's drastic. My fix, and it's probably not going to happen to say the least. But something's got to give. Something's got to give.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. No doubt about it. John, good stuff, man. We appreciate you joining in today. Make sure you guys follow John at John Stolness. Read his work at Bleeding Green Nation. Listen to his Phillies podcast. John, we appreciate you joining in today. Hoping to talk to you soon, more frequently now that the season is rolled around. It's an exciting time of the year for Philadelphia and for everybody. So we appreciate
got it. Always a pleasure,
buddy.
Guys. You bet.
Thank you.
Handsome John. That's what I'm going to call him from now on.
Handsome John. I love it.
I'm not getting that nickname, so John can have
it. I was surprised you were so taken aback by my nickname for John.
Handsome John. The new nickname.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, good segment there from John Stolness. We appreciate him joining in. Always good to talk to somebody we haven't talked to in a little bit. I think we'll start getting more of that, John, as the season rolls around here. Just a week out from training camp. I want to thank everybody for being here today. Don't forget to hit that like button for us on the channel. We'll take some viewer comments if you guys have any. John, in hour number 2 here, we will refresh for another time, all right, the camp battles and which ones are the most important. And then in a little exercise toward the back, maybe the last 30 minutes of the show, I will read you a name, and you will tell me what the expectation or the thought process is for that player coming into the year. So we can go a lot of different ways there, and we will do that as we get closer here now to the start of the 2026 season. So let's start with a little bit of camp battles, Johnny Mac. We've done it before, but we'll do it again. We got some more people in here today, maybe people tuning in, getting ready for training camp, John. So we will run that back. Training camp battles, John. What's the biggest, most important one to watch off the top of your head?
Well, I think safety, simply because that's the one position where there's a question. And it might even be not that big of a question, but Marcus Epps will start the process opposite Drew Makuba. Michael Carter longtime nickel corner with the Jets, is moving to safety full time. He'll be the main competition for Marcus Epps, and you have outside competition as well. If things don't look good, Howie might go outside the organization. So that's the most obvious one. Everything else is pretty locked in because you have a veteran team, you have a plan. You have little things. You have, all right, he's going to be the number 2 receiver to start. Is that going to be Mekhi Lemon or Dontavian Wicks? But if one is the number 2, the other's going to be the number 3, and you're going to be predominantly in an 11 personnel team. So that part's going to take care of itself. I guess if Mekhi Lemon has a really difficult time ramping up, maybe Hollywood Brown can be more involved early, but that would not be a positive, I would think, from anybody's standpoint. Backup quarterback is interesting because of what went on in the spring. Will Howie try to move Tanner McKee if there's an injury somewhere else, or Andy Dalton? If somebody isn't comfortable with their backup and say, well, let's go get a veteran guy. It could be either or, but I don't think they're going to keep 4 quarterbacks. So that nonsense that Howie kind of spawned in the offseason, I don't buy that for a second.
Yeah, me neither.
And Cole Payton, has to prove he belongs, if he doesn't.
Like an uphill battle for him, right? I mean,
well, sure. Hey, when Dalton and McKee are here, he's not getting many reps. So it's
I guess
hard.
if they move on from one of Dalton or McKee, then he slots right in. So
maybe. But it's going to be difficult for him with all, it's the 4th-string guy. You're getting very few reps. You'll just get basically the developmental stuff at the end of practice. So it's going to be tough, but they do stuff behind the scenes, obviously, as well. And they'll know whether he's catching on or not. But this idea that you can't get him through waivers, well, all you have to go back to last year, they got McCord through waivers easily enough and had him on the practice squad the whole year. So, if they keep all 3 veterans, then, Cole could potentially head to the practice squad, but that is an interesting dynamic because of this will be Tanner McKee's last season, most likely. I've talked about the backup offensive line is interesting. Certain guys are going to be here. Fred Johnson and Markel Bell, most notably at tackle. Inside, Drew Kendall's going to be here, but you got a bunch of bodies that could make the team. And, last year you had Cam Williams and Miles Hinton. This year you have Micah Morris. Plus you have all these guys you brought in, the Willie Lampkins, the Jake Majors, the Holland Pierces. This year it's Jaden Roberts. All these guys have an opportunity, and, maybe the default setting is Michael Jordan, who they brought in. How about if we get Michael Jordan and LeBron James in the same city at the same time? How about that?
Are you starting to warm to the idea that LeBron could be coming to Philly?
No, I don't believe it. I mean, I don't, I'm not saying I know. It's my feeling. I find it hard to believe, but every rando, LeBron's going to sign. I'm like, and nobody of any repute has said it. So, I mean, he's considering it, obviously, but I'll believe it when I see it. But it would be cool to have LeBron James and Michael Jordan in Philadelphia at the same time. But we'll see on LeBron. But yeah, I'm not buying the randos who have sources.
Yeah, me neither. Well, we'll see what ends up happening with that. LeBron will probably keep everybody waiting, which is what he normally does. John, with the receivers, it's an interesting one because let's say for a second that Mekhi Lemon beats out Dontavian Wicks to be the receiver number 2. I've actually shifted more toward you on that, where I think Wicks might get it to start. If Lemon gets it though, isn't he still going to line up in the slot? I mean, is he a real outside wide receiver? Is that something he'll have to prove? How do you see the skill sets of the 3 receivers meshing together, for the offense?
Well, I mean, yeah, in theory, Wicks is better suited to play outside because of his size, and Lemon has been mainly a slot corner. So when both of them are playing, Dontavian would be the X and Devontae the Z most of the time, and Mekhi Lemon in the slot. But obviously you want and each has the ability to move around. Wicks can play in the slot, probably not much of a Z, but Devontae can do anything. And Mekhi Lemon, the Eagles drafted him, traded up to draft him at number 20. I don't believe they would have done that if they said he's a slot receiver and nothing else. So I think they believe there's some potential that he can do more, but it might take a while to get there.
Yeah, right. It's only year 1 here. I mean,
Yeah. So I think early on, and that's why I think another reason, along with Wicks's knows Sean Mannion, comfortable in the system. Devontae admitted, yeah, we asked him questions about the new offense because he's been in it. I think of all that trends too. And remember, when 2 receivers are on the field, they're probably going to be outside. It's probably going to be X and Z. Sometimes you have 4 and blah, 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 but 2 tight ends. But, and that's more suited for Wicks. So that's another reason why I think he'll be the number 2, at least early. And maybe Mekhi grows into it by mid-season or something of that nature. But if he starts as the number 2, that's only a good sign because that means they're comfortable with him doing more than just being a slot receiver.
And you're not of the belief that Howie would make a move to add to that room at this point, right? I mean, they spent a first on Lemon and they extended Wicks.
Yeah. No way. Do people think that?
I saw it somewhere that somebody thought that they would add a receiver, but just a comment somewhere. I don't know where it was. Maybe it might have been here on JAKIB, but I just wanted to throw it out there.
Well, probably a big name, probably Stephon Diggs, one of the Tyreek Hill. No. They've made their plan at wide. I mean, everybody wants every big name. I got the Buda Baker question again on a different show. Yes,
you'll be getting that every
like,
year until he's retired.
I mean, look at his contract, people. The big name stuff is frustrating.
Yeah, well, it'll always be here in Philly, John, especially with the fan base.
Now, if somebody gets hurt, that's a different equation. God forbid if Devontae gets hurt. Well, you got to start talking about Stephon Diggs or
that's always baked into it, though, right?
Yeah, I hope it's baked into it, but I feel like I have to. Well, McMullen said they wouldn't sign Tyree.
Devontae Smith goes down. They bring in a receiver. No shit, Sherlock is what I would say. Well,
I do, but you have to lay the breadcrumbs out.
Yeah, I get it. I got you, John. All right, John. What do you believe is would be the most pressing area then for Howie to add? You just kind of laid out some of the camp battles pretty well. I think depth on the offensive line could be a place they would add. Obviously, safety is the one that jumps out. I'm more in wait and see mode. I mean, obviously, you want to see a step forward from Makuba. I think Epps is a solid player, depending on how much Howie wants to spend there. I'm not sure whether they would add to that position. What do you believe is the most pressing area right now for Howie, where he's probably looking to add, or is he more in wait and see mode, do you think?
Well, we only got a week. I think he's going to play wait and see at safety. Everywhere else, I think he's pretty solid, comfortable. They don't, like I said, with the offensive line, they brought in Jordan, so that solved the one issue of no experience. And they have a multitude of bodies that you'd feel really comfortable if Stoutland was still here with developmental. But we don't know with Chris Cooper. Everywhere else, quarterback, obviously they're fine. I'm not in love with the backups, but they're fine. Running back, I personally am not in love with their backups, but they think they're fine. Wide receivers, they think they're deeper than they have been. They're just not as good at the top. So you're not bringing in depth. Tight end, they got a boatload of bodies. They just probably need more, a more traditional, but you're not going to find that a Y back type that can do both. You're not going to find that at this stage. Defensive line, they're loaded at defensive tackle and edge. Linebacker, they're loaded, basically. Defensive backs, they're deeper than they've ever been at corner. With by adding Woolen and Jonathan Jones. And safety, I think, the depth is fine. You're worried more about the starters. But the depth is fine. So, yeah, I think and that's typical when you have a good team and a good roster. You don't have a lot of questions. I don't think they have a ton of questions. That doesn't mean they can't improve at certain positions, but I think people have to understand the art of roster building. You don't just bring in big names, who make a lot of money. You have to piece it together. So I don't think they have a ton of questions.
Yeah, and special teams is obviously a big part of it. Where do you see those areas, John, that are tough this year for Howie? I mean, me and Cilio did the exercise where we kind of built a 53-man roster. Like he went through every position and was like, how many are they keeping here? Kind of as an exercise just to see, all right, well, this is where you might have to crunch. It does get interesting in some areas depending on where you prioritize or where you keep extra bodies. I mentioned even a guy like, if they prioritize maybe a secondary and more wide receivers or more offensive linemen, a guy like Ty Robinson could be out. Or if you only go 9 or 10 offensive linemen, that could push, somebody out somewhere else. Where do you see those crunches right now? I mean, we could go through the whole 53 ordeal process if you wanted to do that. But just does anything top of mind for you that could be, all right, there's a crunch there. Howie might need to cut bait on somebody or try and play the practice squad game. Who can make it through waivers? Who might not? Where do you see that this year?
Yeah, well, that's a big thing, strategy, because you can push
right.
like punt returner. I presume that Britton will be the punt returner if he's healthy, but they'll cut him and put him on the practice squad and elevate him, so they'll play the game there. And that enables you to keep another body. I also think how do you play? They're not going to go too deep at wide receiver because what's the point if you're not going to play guys? So, it might be Johnny Wilson versus Darius Cooper for that final spot. You're not going to keep both. With tight end, I got to ask the question about fullback. I think Cam Latu is going to make this team because he can play fullback, he can play tight end, he's a good blocker, and he's great special teams player. So that puts him above his competition, the versatility along with the special teams ability. Typically, they're going to keep 10. They've kept 11 offensive linemen because they've always been so deep. They're not as deep, and you don't have the cachet of Stoutland pushing to keep guys. One of the problems is you probably have to keep Uwar Bernard and not risk him to waivers. That complicates things. So you're going to lose a good defensive tackle probably, or at least one that somebody, like people talk about cutting Ty Robinson. Well, he's going to get claimed. And I don't say that often because people overrate waiver claims, but he will get claimed. So
that's a game they'd have to keep him. That's
yeah.
one. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
linebackers are pretty concrete, Vaughn, Campbell, Trotter, Munden, and Chance Campbell's, can you get him back on the practice squad? Hopefully. Edge rushers, they're incredibly deep because they signed Ebiketie, they traded for Grenard, and they also signed Epinesa. So, they might.
That's an interesting room. What do they keep there? How many edges are they keeping?
I think only 4, but we'll see. They could keep 5.
All right, so Grenard, Nolan, Jalux, and
Ebiketie.
Ebiketie or Epinesa, whoever prevails.
Yeah, Ebiketie makes more money, so you would think it would be him. But you have to see if Epinesa is healthy. So we'll see that first, and he can make the team. They might keep 5 because they're so deep. They're, as I mentioned, they're deeper than they've ever been at corner. So, Jacorian Bennett, which I know people don't care, Kelly Ringo, Mac McWilliams, those guys, you can't keep them all. Keely would have to step up as a good special teams player. So you might try to trade one of them. And at safety, safety's the big question mark. And we haven't even seen Cole Wisniewski practice because he wasn't able to practice in the spring. So maybe he starts to make a push if he's healthy for a backup role. But yeah, it's pretty deep roster. And Uar Bernard complicates things because you probably have to keep him on the 53.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. It'll be interesting to see what the Eagles end up doing with the 53. I want to thank everybody in the chat right now. I don't know what's going on. People are sending 400 gems, Eagle. 400 gems, Eagle. 400 gems. I don't know what the hell a gem is, John. Is this like
what is a gem? That happened yesterday. We don't know. We're behind the curve, man. What is a YouTube gem?
Well, I don't even know if they're called gems. What is I need AI to help me. What is a YouTube gem?
YouTube gems can mean 2 things.
100 gem. Oh, jewels. I think they're called jewels, but StreamYard is telling us they are called gems. Gems and jewels. A virtual currency that viewers purchase on the YouTube mobile app to send interactive digital gifts to creators. All right. How much is 400 of them? What is this? $5? I'm assuming. $2. All right, $2. There you go. All right. So I don't know. But I do appreciate you guys sending in the gems. All right. Thank you guys for supporting the channel.
You got to figure out the gems. That's your job, Sam.
I know it is. And there's one over my head. Must have been an addition when I was over in the coast of Italy, Johnny Mac, with the feet kicked up. All right. Good stuff there. Thanks, everybody, for being here. John, I'm going to say a name. We're going to go through the projected starting 2022. And I'm going to say a name, and I want you to just kind of, tell me what you think the expectation is for him this year, or what the story of that player is this year for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll start, and I'm going to kind of be random with it. Start with Dallas Goedert.
Well, if anybody would fit in with this offense or this projected offense, it would be Dallas Goedert. As far as being helped. If you look at George Kittle in San Francisco, if you look at Tucker Kraft in Green Bay, if you look at how Sean McVay has 150 tight ends now, tight ends are a big part of this offensive scheme. He's really good. Jalen Hurts trusts him, which has been a big thing with Jalen Hurts. Some of the newer receivers, it usually takes some time to develop that trust. He's maybe trusts Dallas more than anybody else. So, there's everything set up to him having a big season. The one thing you worry about is the decline. He had a big season last year from a touchdown perspective. and was phenomenal. They used him tremendously in the red zone, but he took the big slide back as a blocker, and he had been really a plus blocker for most of his career, and fell back. Some people said, well, maybe they made him take a pay cut. Well, he took another pay cut, so I don't know if that's going to work, but yeah, he should fit this offense. Can he stay healthy for 17 games? That's always the thing with Dallas. But everything is all systems go with this offense and Dallas Goedert, because he's the one tight end that can do everything that they have, and Jalen Hurts trusts him. So they should be able to work some Tucker Craft magic. I'm not going to go Kittle magic, but
Tucker Craft was pretty damn good before his injury last year.
Yep.
I don't know if they'll be able to do that, but we will see. Any concern about his slight decline last year? Wasn't so much in the past game. Obviously, had a bunch of touchdowns, but
yeah, it was. He was not good as a blocker, and he's got to get back to where he was. So there's somewhat of a concern because Johnny Munt is a very good blocker, but his history is his history, and he doesn't play a lot. So it's not like you can go ask Johnny Munt to play. Oh, go play 700 snaps. He's never done it before. So, he's a role player. And so the more he's on the more he's on the field, the more he's going to get exposed as being one-dimensional. So you have to be careful with that. But his career, I'm trying to look it up. His career high in snaps was 466. So, I mean, don't expect more than that. And last year he played 401. But he is a good blocker.
Yeah. How many tight ends do you think they keep?
4.
So Goddard,
Eli,
obviously, yep.
Johnny Munt, and Cam Latu would be my early selections.
Johnny Munt and Cam Latu, interesting names there. All right, John, next name I'm going to give you, Jonathan Grenard.
Or, by the way, real quick, because Cam Latu switched to fullback, so you might want to call him a fullback. So depending on what you want to call him.
Good context. Happy you added it.
Who'd you say?
Next name, Johnny Mac, will be Jonathan Grenard.
Oh, love him. Love him. I've said it from the day they acquired him. The Eagles fans will fall in love with Jonathan Grenard very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. This is the best edge rusher they've had in a long time. Now, I'm not saying he's going to get 20 sacks like Hassan Reddick did, but he is a more well-rounded player. He's a tackle for loss machine along with the sacks. He finishes. He didn't finish last year, which was kind of weird. So he's got everything. He's got the arm length. He's got the speed. He's got the quickness. Just really one of the most underrated players in the NFL. Big time player. Big time player. One of the reasons I'm so excited about the Eagles defense as a whole. Because they've never had this player.
And are you any concern about the drop in production for him last year?
No, because the pressure percentages were actually higher. So he was getting through.
I think the problem with selling that to Eagle fans right now is they got Bryce Huff PTSD, who had similar, really good pressure numbers, and it didn't pay.
Yeah, but he had 12 sacks the year prior. He had 12 and a half the year prior to that. When he was a part-time player, he had 8. He's got a far longer history than Bryce Huff, and he plays a lot. I don't like that comp at all. So he's produced consistently. He got hurt in 2022, but if you take from 2021 to 24 as a pass rusher, he's produced consistently. In 2025, even he produced as a player, and he's been one of the best edge rushers in football. The second tier. He's not in the Micah tier or the Miles tier.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
But I mean, certainly he's been top 10. And he made the Pro Bowl as late as 2024. And they had Van Ginkel that year as well. It was a second team All Pro, and he's the one who made the Pro Bowl. So I can't wait for Eagles fans to see him play because, like I said, and his style of play is just going to excite them as well.
And how well do you think his style of play fits with Vic Fangio?
Well, because he can get to the quarterback, man.
Right. Now, Vic does typically like the versatile edges, though, right? So does Jonathan Grenard have that versatility? Do you think?
Yeah, he's been doing that. He drops and floors his scheme as well. Not as much, probably, but that's overrated. Vic doesn't do that a ton. You just have to be comfortable.
What about against the run, though? Remember last year when they got the Colts, I think they got he is.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I think that's going to be important, honestly.
He can do everything. That's my point. And that's why he's not going to get 20 sacks. That's why I called him the best. That's why I said that. It's not Hassan Reddick. He's not going to have 20 sacks, but he's a much better all-around player. He's a tackle for loss machine, as I said.
Yeah, good stuff there. All right, Johnny Mac. Next name, I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball right now. Jordan Davis, fresh off a massive contract extension.
Yeah, I think it all clicked for him last year. Now, the only question I have about Jordan Davis is, moving past the Moro Ajomo era, can he be a 3-down player? Which won't even be a question this year. Next year, I don't know if he can do that, but as a nose tackle, he is a difference maker, and this is exactly when Jody and I used to debate. I used to call it a very very contextual pick. I don't know if a lot of people understood it at the time. He's a big top tier run stuffer that makes things easier for everybody else. And he turned into that player last year that they envisioned. But now they paid him like he's going to play 3 downs, which he's not going to do this year. But he'll probably have to do next year. And that's my only concern. As a 2-down player, he's off the charts. And he's a leader, and he's a great special teams player from a field blocking standpoint. A lot to like about Jordan Davis. And as long as he has found the key to that conditioning, which he seems to have done it, I think he's going to be fine.
Good stuff there. I think it's a big thing here. What do you think he needs to take a step forward, though, John? Another one, more of that 3-down player. Obviously, it's answered a little bit by what you just said with the roster layout, but I do believe the Eagles gave him that big bag of money, expecting he would continue to evolve. Or are you of the belief they paid him for what he was, and maybe they're not expecting him to be that more 3-down defensive tackle? How do you see that part of it?
Well, no, I think they expect it, but they don't expect it until 2027.
Right. They're patient on it. They think it's still a work in progress.
and he'll probably play less on third downs this year than last year, unless somebody gets hurt again. Carter missed a month, so he played more than he normally does. But that would not be a positive sign. Look, on obvious passing situations, you want Jalen Carter and Moro Jomo on the field, and Jonathan Grenard, and then you can pick between Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt. That's your best group. That's your best pass rushing group. And that's the guys you want on the field in the fourth quarter in high leverage situations. That'll change in 2027, most likely.
We'll see how that works out with Jordan Davis. John, flipping back over to the offensive side of the ball. Let's go to center Cam Jurgens.
Yeah, I think Cam is going to have a bounce back year. I mentioned it in the spring. The most positive part to me about the offensive line was just because you can't judge offensive line in the spring because they just, they don't have pads on. So, I mean, you have to wait and see, but he was just in a much better mood. He felt better. He's smiling. He's having fun. That was not the case last year. Same thing with Landon Dickerson. They were miserable because they were in so much pain, trying to fight through it. So I think it's going to be a lot better. But, admittedly, that's speculation. But I think smiling and having fun is a lot better than hating life and trying to grind through.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I agree with that. I don't think that answers every question, but I do think that's more of a positive than the alternative. And how important is he this year, John? I mean, it feels like in many ways,
every single one of those starting offensive linemen are.
That's what I mean. It feels like in many ways they are the backbone of the team.
If they're healthy and playing at a high level, you're a legitimate Super Bowl team.
It almost feels unfair, though, John, because they didn't play that bad last year. Everybody talks about them like they were the worst unit in the league. It's like they weren't historic, so everybody's shitting on them. It's almost a tough needle to thread. It's like, hey, if you guys aren't unreal, team's gonna struggle.
That seems to be what the Eagles are saying by the shift that, unless they're unreal, we can't play the way we played before. Because you're right. I mean, all the offensive line people who know said, yeah, they didn't live up to their normal standard, but they're still much better than most offensive lines last year. And that wasn't good enough. So they have to get back to at least the 2021, 2022, 2023 level, where, again, the Eagles had a top-tier rushing attack with Miles Sanders and DeAndre Swift. They have to get to at least that level. And I've said it from the start, and I'm more convinced now than ever after talking to Nick and all those things. All these changes that are being spun to you as they got to get the passing game going, they're trying to get the running game going back to where it was.
It seems like they're trying to get the running game going without using Jalen Hurts as much, too.
Well, that too.
That
too.
Yeah.
But they want to get back to where they're an elite running team, and the passing part, the efficiency part will fall into place if that's the case. That's the plan. But yeah, it's much more difficult without the +1 impact of Jalen Hurts, no doubt about it.
Good stuff there. Cam Jurgens was the name we just hit. Staying on, John, that offensive side of the ball, Saquon Barkley, I think he goes hand in hand with those offensive linemen. What is the expectation? What is the thought process on him coming into this season for the Eagles?
Gotta deliver, man. Gotta deliver. I'm not talking 2,000 yards, but I'm talking 1,500.
Yeah, agreed.
Got to. And this is all being done for him because, he's kind of laid out what because I went through this with Adrian Peterson and everybody would say the same thing. And look, from a logical standpoint, yes, it is more difficult for the running back to be offset and shotgun because he limits which way he can go with the football. That's true. But Saquon had 2,005 yards under that same setup. And 2,500 and whatever, the most ever, using that setup. Adrian Peterson might be the best pure runner since Jim Brown, and he played a lot of gun from the gun with the same limitations. Come on, you can do it. People have done it at the highest level. That's what another part that I don't understand. Like, you just did it. And now you can't do it. I don't know. That's the one question I can't answer.
It's going to be interesting. How much do you think the new scheme, the projected new scheme, the switch to outside zone will help or hurt Saquon Barkley?
I don't think it'll hurt him. That's not what I'm saying. But I think it hurts the quarterback, which is more important. I think it helps Saquon.
Are they taking the eggs out of the Jalen Hurts basket?
Seems that way. But from the running perspective.
Right.
But again, it's stuff he's not done before. Because people, I'm not saying he can't do it. He's not been asked to do it. So, if you've been doing things a certain way for 7 years and really 11 years, if you go back to college, and somebody goes to you, you know what? No, we're not going to do it this way anymore. Just do it this way. It's like, if you're a golfer, screw your swing. We're going to rebuild it. All right? Don't do it that way. Doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, it's going to be interesting on Saquon this year. How much do you think, real quick, unrelated but related, how much does the loss of A.J. Brown hurt Saquon Barkley? You got to think with A.J. on the field, it might open things up for a running back, and safeties don't want to get beat over the top with A.J. Brown, one of the best, the best deep receivers in the game, one of the best in one-on-one, man coverage. How much does that impact Saquon, do you think, this year?
Yeah, it impacts everybody. He drew a lot of attention. And now, the presumption that, well, they'll just throw that attention to Devontae Smith. I don't think it's the case, at least right away, till he proves it. But anytime you're focused on, somebody, it's going to take probably a defender away from doing something else. So, his presence more than any statistic will be what the Eagles miss the most.
I agree with that. All right, Johnny Mac, went from Saquon there, going back over to the defensive side of the football. Let's go to linebacker Jahad Campbell.
Well, I'm a big proponent of Jahad. Not that there's not going to be any growing pains. There certainly will be, but he's so gifted. He's so tough to deal with. You saw it in a limited burst last year with the first 6 or 7 games when he was online to be Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's so long. He's so athletic. those layered throws that quarterbacks like to make over linebackers' heads. You can, with his wingspan, which he's 6'3". I'm just looking it up. He's got a 6'8" wingspan. Can you imagine like an NBA power forward?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Running like a gazelle in the middle of the field, putting up his arms. You got to throw. You got to layer it between the safety and above that. Yeah, I think he's going to be a star. And he's good at everything else as well. At all, but ironically, the one thing he hasn't been good at is rushing the passer.
Yeah, right. I think that's because he's so focused on, trying to play the linebacker position soundly. It's almost like, you know what I mean? Until you get that down, it's hard to add that.
Yeah. Maybe that's part of it. I mean, for the people that didn't, Howie famously talked about, Micah and Abdul Carter when they drafted him as being a guy who essentially could do both, but maybe would lean towards pass rush. I don't know. I didn't see the one thing that Micah has is that just like he can go 0 to 1,000,000 miles an hour in like a blink of an eye. I don't see that as a pass rusher, but maybe he can be better from the second level because you're able to use your athleticism more on a blitz. So I think he'll improve at it, but I definitely think Vic is right. Not that it's a surprise. This guy's an all-ball linebacker, and anybody was looking at him as an edge rusher missed the boat. He's an all-ball linebacker.
Fair enough. Good stuff, Johnny Mac. John, we'll keep rolling through our players that we're running through here after we are a week out from Eagles training camp. But look who showed up. John was asking for this person yesterday. Where did he go? Here he is.
Oh, there we go.
Brian Pumper. Look at the new name, John. Brian Pumper,
GPT. All right, Pumper. He's up on current events.
Yes, he is. He says this: Jalen Hurts' inability to lead a group of men directly impacted our Eagles' chances of becoming a dynasty. We will look back and frown upon his tenure.
I don't think that's the case. Come on, Pumper. way to bring it on your return. He threw the 102-mile-an-hour fastball with GPT, and look, this is already if they don't play another game with Jalen Hurts, which obviously they are, this is already the best era of Eagles football in the Super Bowl since 1949 and 1950. It's already the best era of Eagles football ever. So I think he's going to be looked upon pretty fondly. If you talk about not getting the second Super Bowl if they never get it, maybe you'll look back on that and say that was a missed opportunity. But I mean, come on. Five consecutive playoff berths, 2 NFC championships, 1 Super Bowl championship. So you win 70% of your games. Come on. What are we doing here? There's a lot to criticize. You can criticize legitimately about Jalen Hurts. People will look fondly at this era. Trust me. When the next era begins and you're not winning 70% of your games, and it might not be the quarterback's fault, it probably won't be the quarterback's fault, he will be fondly remembered as the Eagles starting quarterback by most Eagles fans.
Good response there from Johnny Mac. Brian Pump, it's great to see you back in the chat. All right, great to see you in here. We appreciate the super chat today, getting the people going in the chat, I'm sure. One more super chat before we continue with some names, and we won't be able to get them all done. We only got 13 minutes left to go in the show today, but we'll get a few more names in here. Here's Jeff Bone, the Bonehead. What's up, Bonehead? Member for 24 months. 2 years, my guy. We appreciate you supporting the channel per usual. He says this: John and Z, who has the best D line in the NFC East?
D-line. Well,
Probably the
I
Eagles or
mean,
the
the
Giants,
Eagles.
right?
Yeah, the Eagles. The Eagles. I mean, the Eagles are loaded.
Yeah, and the Giants got rid of Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah. I mean, the Eagles are not only they have depth as well. I mean, the Giants do have a good, that's one of the strengths of their team. Um, it's not what it once was with Dexter and Lawrence, but they still have and you have to see what Carter develops into, because he was a little bit of a disappointment. I would frame it as a rookie, but still tremendous gifts. They signed DJ Reader, who's all right. You got to sign somebody, and he's okay, but he's not Dexter Lawrence. Darius Alexander's a pretty good player, I think, or he's going to be. Brian Burns. You have Arbel Reese, who's going to, in theory, rush the passer as well. So they have a lot of upside, but they haven't really proven it yet. Whereas the Eagles have, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Jonathan Grenard now to add to Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt and Moro Ajomo and Byron Young and Ty Robinson and going all the way down. They're going to cut people that they don't want to cut. They're so deep on the defensive front. So, but the Giants do have a ton of upside. If Carter hits, if Reese hits, Burns is the one, proven commodity, and they can make do with the inside guys with Reader. They don't have, but losing Dexter obviously hurts. But I mean, you haven't seen it from Carter and Reese, obviously, but the upside is enormous.
No doubt. Jeff Bone, thank you, brother. Appreciate you being here per usual. Appreciate your support of the channel for the last 2 years and plus. Jeff Bonehead, I love you, brother. Appreciate you, man. All right, John, a couple more names I'll rattle off. I'll stick on the defensive side of the ball. Last name we did was Jahad Campbell. How about Andrew Makuba, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, I know the Eagles are high on him. Vic has been hard on him because he likes him. He thinks he's got a big upside. Type of safety he wants, guy who's comfortable in space. I talk about it all the time. Guy who doesn't lose his cool in coverage. Kind of did against Tampa Bay. I saw it on the quarterback show. He lost that coverage, but he's normally very comfortable, which isn't the case for a lot of safeties when he's covering people. That probably dates back to his slot days at Clemson. And I think he's got a big upside as a coverage player. Still a little bit concerned about his size because he's got a little Avonte Maddox in him. He's undersized, but he plays like he's 205 pounds. He throws his body around a little bit too much. So, can he hold up? That's a little bit of a concern. But, just as a pure football player, I think he's going to be a good player. And I think being with Vic is only going to help him.
And it's probably pretty important that he has a big year this year, right? Because the safety
kind
of relying on him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got to be the playmaker.
Yeah.
If Marcus Epps is there, if you think about it that way, for Reed and CJ, CJ was the playmaker and Reed was the traffic cop. Marcus has got to be the traffic cop and he's got to be the playmaker.
Fair way to look at it. Good stuff there. All right, Johnny Mac. Maybe one or two names left, maybe one lane left. We'll see how long it takes to talk about this guy. But going back over to the offensive side now, I'm going back and forth here. Wide receiver Devontae Smith.
Yeah, I mean, wide receiver one. I don't, like I said, if I did that list, 90 players you have on your offseason roster, 91 really with the international player. If you did a list of concerns, like who was the most concerned, who was the least concerned, he'd be very near the top of the least concerning. Just a rock solid football player. He's the offensive version of Cooper DeJean. Just good. Just a good football player. can do everything. Like I said, he doesn't have the size to play the X spot, but he can play it. He can play Z, he can play slot. He can beat you with route running. He can beat you with athleticism. He's actually, despite the lack of size, he's actually a great contested catch player, as you've seen. There's nothing not to like about Devontae Smith's game.
My only concern there, John, is you always say you want to go to a player's strengths. And to me, I don't know how well Devontae's strengths mesh with Jalen Hurts in terms of Devontae is one of the best route runners in the league. So is there that split second on every route where he puts the cornerback in a spin and that ball's got to come out on time and on target. And if it's there, Devontae will be there every time. That hasn't really been Jalen's style of quarterbacking. I don't know if that'll be an issue. You're right. Devontae can still do other things. He's still good in contested catches. He's still good down the field. He's still good in a lot of areas. But his best skill set to me, are they going to be able to utilize it enough? I don't know. That's probably my big question there.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not his fault, but yeah, I mean, he's under the same limitations as AJ was. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. He's not playing with a high volume thrower. But I mean, but again, that's not his fault. He can do everything you need from a receiver standpoint. But receivers, maybe more than any other position, they need, and Brady was talking about this, I don't know, on one of maybe at the Fanatics Fest, I don't know. He's been on so many things recently. It's like, it was on the Kelsey's podcast talking about diva receivers. They're at the mercy of the quarterback getting them the football. So you might get it 3 times a week. You might get it 11 times a week. They're doesn't matter how good you are. You need somebody to get you the football. So yeah, he's under the same limitations that AJ was under. He tends to handle it better, which is another positive to his whole skill set as a player. But yeah, I mean, that's not his fault. So, but yeah, from Jerry Rice on down, somebody's got to get him the football. They can't just grab the football.
No doubt. Good stuff there. All right, Johnny Mac, that's going to do it. We got about 4 minutes left to go on the show today. I want to thank everybody for being here today. We're a week out, everybody, from training camp. John, can you believe we're a week out there from training camp?
I cannot. Gotta go. Gotta get some errands done, man. I'm procrastinating.
Yeah, you better get the oil changed in the car. You better get shit going there, Johnny Mac.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Zander. You're becoming more savvy as a married man.
I guess you don't know yet. When will you be down there? Will it be for the first practice or?
Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay.
Wednesday.
Yeah. So you will be down there Wednesday. So we'll keep you guys posted on what the schedule will look like. And you're assuming those practices are pretty early, right, John?
Yeah. The tentative, they got to put it out soon, but the tentative is going to be 10 a.m. So
we'll maybe do a phone or segment in the morning, and then we'll do the show.
Yeah, generally what we've done in the past is I check in via phone on the drive there.
Right.
And you get that dead spot on the Walt Whitman, but there's nothing you can do. And then do the show at night. But we'll have the schedule soon, and there'll be days where it'll be at 8 to 10 in the morning as well, because they have the day off or a walkthrough or something like that. But for 3 weeks, there's a little upheaval.
Yeah, there is a little upheaval in the show timing. All right, so we'll keep you guys all posted on that. John, I'm going to have you after the show. A little business on the air here. I'm going to have you text me what phone you have. I'm sure you have an iPhone, right? But Is it?
Yeah.
I need to know like which specific one, because I'm going to try and get you a mic that you can plug into the show, so you don't have the issue of having to hold the freaking thing to your ear or to your mouth and all of that crap when you're talking. I want to make sure everybody can hear you when you're on the move. Then you'll be able to use that probably for the whole season as well.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, I'll get you that. All right, Johnny Mac, your final thoughts here on this a Tuesday edition of Birds 365.
A week away. Enjoy the last respites of freedom. The grind begins in 1 week.
No doubt. Johnny Mac, for you too, for me too. I'm looking forward to it. And for everybody here, we appreciate you. Johnny Mac, great show today, my friend. Appreciate John Stolness doing it. John, good stuff. We will catch up with you tomorrow on a Wednesday edition of Birds 365. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks, all.
All right, thanks, Jim Mac. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. Appreciate him doing it today. 1 week out from training camp. Whoa! Freaking Eagle season is here, everybody. Freaking Eagle season is here. I mean, how great is that? How great is that? That Eagle season is officially upon us. Other sports are good, but they're not that good. You know, the other sports are good, but they're not that good. So, JAKIB should hire Ryan. I don't know. He's probably out of our budget, brother. All right. I think he'd get you guys fired up, though, wouldn't he? A high school would hire Nick to coach Caster. Come on, dude. How are you going to say a high school would hire Nick to coach tight ends and then say Hurts is the most athletic, cerebral quarterback we've ever witnessed? Holy crap. Rico, I'm with you, man. I'm ready for football. You and me both, brother. All right. Here's Underdog. Always funny to see. Underdog. Underdog! What up, brother? I'm sure you're pissing the folks off in the chat today, per usual. Let's see what he says. The skinny jeaned era of Eagles fans are at it again. Knuckle dragon mouth breathers, speaking with full conviction and zero knowledge. Underdog, what's up, man? Good to see you, brother. Hope you're having a good summer, man. We're in the middle of the summer right now. Middle of the summer, July 21st. Holy crap. Can you believe it? One of the winning. That's true, Island. Mayan, only host with questionable background should be hired here. That's true, Mayan. I'm good with that. The Island of Misfit Toys. All right. The Island of Misfits. Goddard needs to be the Twiz. What's up, Twiz? He says this. Goddard needs to be the X factor for this offense to thrive. Twiz, I'm more and more coming around to that, you know, obviously with the way the offense is being built. We'll see. I mean, Twiz, any concern on Goddard's, I don't want to call it a decline, but he got a little worse in the run, in the blocking element. Any concern on him aging? How old is Goddard now? Dallas Goddard, age 31. Yeah, I think he should be good, right? I think he should be pretty good. I don't know. He's not that old. 31, I mean, he is a physical natured player. He plays the game in a physical way. Does dirty work. I think that's a good way to put it, Island Ultra. But plagiarized and out of context Marcus Aurelius quotes aren't cerebral. I saw a statue of Marcus Aurelius in Italy. I can't wait till training. Me too, Angelo. I'm with you, brother. Pump, could you imagine bronze sexuals and Jalenites in the same city? Baby effing oil central. Gross. Oh, man. Pumper says, I can't wait till LeBron leaves Sixer fans at the altar. We'll see what LeBron does. Mina Kimes is the real chat GPS. Her Yale education allowed her to memorize facts but knows shit about sports. Damn. Kimberly, shots fired. I don't know enough about Mina to make an opinion on her. I don't watch ESPN. I don't watch Fox Sports. I don't watch any of those shows. I really don't. I really don't. I talk to JAKIB Nation. I talk to JAKIB Nation and I watch the games. And I listen to John McMullen. And I read John McMullen's work. And I go on the National Football Show. Super Bowl or bust trash cot. That's funny. All right, folks. A lot of good progress here as we get closer here to the Eagles season. I'm ready to go. I'm ready for the season. Let me open up this one. Get a little bit of light in here. Get a little bit of sunlight in here. All right. That's nice. That's nice. I set up my main computer yesterday. I still don't have my desk, though. I still don't have my desk. So hopefully the camera looks a little better again. I was on my laptop. The laptop always looks like crap. I still only have the virtual background right now, though. So once I get everything set up, I'll be able to build the backdrop. I'm ordering a pretty dope desk and a pretty good, I'm hoping what's going to be a pretty good backdrop. So I'll be able to, that should be done, once I come up with the funds. I had to get the dining room table, the couch, the bed, the bedside tables, 4 rugs. I mean, you name it. I've had to buy. I'm wheezing to the finish line here, folks. All right, for outfitting the new place. All right, the outdoor furniture we got. So I put the desk on hold. All right, but hopefully we'll be able to get that soon, and then I'll be able to build out the studio. The studio should look pretty good when my vision comes to fruition. All right. Yeah, I'm Jerry. I'm working on that. I'm gonna get some echo canceling stuff on the roof and right here in front of me. This room should once I fill it, Jerry, it's empty. That's part of the problem. When you have an empty room, as you know, I'm sure being in music, the echo is always going to be a lot worse. So I think the echo should go down once I'm able to build it out a little bit. I'll have a full case behind me and stuff. I'm gonna have a nice big L-shaped desk, so I think it should be pretty good. But you're right, Jerry. I got to get rid of that echo, which I will. Yeah, and I'm gonna do some of Jerry. I'm gonna do some of the echo canceling things on the ceiling and maybe like on this wall in front of me. So I think that should help it out. Kimberly says, "Let's throw it." Kimberly, I will take them. Supers will go a long way at this point, especially in the middle of the offseason. All right, middle of the offseason. So, all right, guys, love all you guys. Appreciate you doing it today. All right, Angelo, good for me yet. I want to own one. I don't own a house yet. I'm renting. I'm in a rental. All right, I am on a lease and a rental. So no purchased home yet for me. I hope to do that at some point in the next year. Maybe we'll do my 1-year lease here, and then we'll buy a house at the end of it. All right. So we'll see how that works. All right, guys. Love all you guys. Appreciate all you guys for doing it. All right. Good to see everybody in the chat. Rico, Jerry, Caster Green, Underdog, Bird Gang Girl, Kimberly Sirico, Rasputin. Appreciate all you guys for doing it today. As always, love all the great people of JAKIB Nation. 1 week out, everybody, from the Eagles reporting to training camp. What a great thing. All right, what a great thing. Love all you guys. See you next time, everybody.